Hi, and welcome to Coming to Terms with AI. I'm Miri Blayckher, the social media manager here at Coco Hub. I had absolutely zero knowledge when it comes to conversational AI, chatbots, and voice bots. I need help. So I decided to create a glossary of terms even a newbie like myself could understand. I'll be talking to industry leaders to explain terms, ideas, and concepts in a way that will make sense to me. And if it makes sense to me, it will probably make sense to you too. So today I'm talking to Rucha Gokhale, CEO and co-founder of IndyRise and co-founder of Women in Voice, New Jersey. Hi, Rucha.
Hi. I wouldn't call my husband the co-founder of IndyRise. IndyRise is my baby. He just happens to be on the board. But Women in Voice, New Jersey, absolutely. I teamed up with a bunch of very cool women to do that.
So founder, no co-founder. So can you explain conversational AI to me?
Sure. Let's see. This is a conversation, right? This is very difficult to replicate with a computer. Can you give me maybe a couple of reasons why you think it may be difficult to replicate with a computer?
Because maybe facial expressions and
Right.
this thinking and pauses.
Exactly. There's body language. There's like as we're speaking, we're changing directions, we're changing tacks. So that's a little bit, it's nuanced. When humans have a conversation, there are several nuances, and it's hard to replicate in a computer because a computer will essentially do what we tell it to do, and we haven't really codified conversation deeply enough for a machine to do it well. But we do a few things well with conversational AI, such as that sort of helps and assists humans. Use cases that I've dealt with in the industry have been around, okay, let me do like a level one support where there are standard questions that people have. Let me have a conversational AI interface answer them for me. So let me have a machine answer them for me in as natural a language as possible. Um, we can get to that next level of interaction with the customers. We've also seen a lot of like simple FAQs type stuff. Hey, where can I find X, or what's the status on my ticket that I submitted 15 days ago. These are not things. Human resources are obviously a little bit more valuable, so these are the types of things that conversational interfaces can help users answer, if it's in the context of their everyday productivity tools and things like that. So what is conversational AI? So if you're going to have a machine have a conversation at the lower level with humans, so what are the different components that we need to think about, right? How do we break down? How far have we been able to break down or codify conversations so that we can implement them in an AI platform? So when you ask me a question or you ask somebody a question, there is a purpose, right? You have a purpose for that question. So being able to identify that purpose, that intent, is like one aspect of so you'll hear the term intents in conversational AI. It's actually the purpose, right? What is the purpose you're trying to fulfill in this conversation? It's an intent at the most basic level. Another aspect of conversational AI, I mean, just at the at the basic level, are entities. What do you mean by an entity? So if I ask you, hey, what is the status of my ticket in the help desk system? There are different like items or entities that you've sort of, you sprinkled through this conversation. You're talking about the status of a ticket that I submitted. So there's me, there's a ticket, there's a system, there's a timestamp. So all these little variables, parameters, that you can codify and say, okay, if you want to find out the status of a ticket, these are the pieces of information I need so I can fulfill your request, fulfill your intent. And so there's those entities that you call out. Slots, I think, it's a kind of made up word, really. It's just, to me it's like, okay, if I've identified all these little boxes of things that I need to have information in before I can fulfill an intent. So how do I fill those boxes of things? How do I fill those slots? What kind of slot is it? Is it a date slot? Is it a time slot? Is it something else? Is it a number, etc.? It's just a way to represent, again, that basic codification of the conversation. So these are like what you will see in most conversational AI interfaces as things that developers or implementation engineers have to set up in order to, fulfill the dialogues that you want to have with the system. So that's one piece, right? There's the conversational system that you have to write out the codification of your conversation. But that's fine. So the conversation can happen uh, as long as you are able to fulfill those pieces of information in those modules, components that you've identified. But still, a lot of this data, right? Data is another big aspect of conversations. When you and I are speaking with each other, we're relying on memory, we're relying on facts, etc., that we've stored in our brain, which is a very complex thing. But we've tried to, again, replicate it in various data storage systems, data management systems, big data, etc. So how do you take that data, right? How do you have this interface? Again, interface is a layer, is a modality that through which you're engaging in that conversation. Even though we say conversational agents, they're not like one thing, right? A human is a walking, talking supercomputer. But when you put an agent in front of a person, there are many different pieces of hardware, pieces of software that are together represent that person. So we have neurons that pass messages back and forth between all our sensory organs and the brain, and all of that data processing happens. So what is the computer equivalent of it, right? You've got your connections, or you've got your cloud where all of your data might reside. But how do I speak to that data in this modality? So that, broadly speaking, is what the layer of integrations is about, right? A lot of times you will speak to that data between various systems through APIs, but sometimes APIs aren't available. So what are those middle layer actors that help you, fulfill that the data exchange in a conversation, right? So we talked about data, we talked about integrations, we talked about the basic tenets of conversation. Now, so all of this existed in your web applications and your mobile applications. So how is conversational AI different? A major component of this, we haven't really cracked the code, but um, the smartness or the intelligence that today we're focusing mostly on is the understanding of the language. So these websites, mobile apps, you have to know exactly, you as a user, you are forced to interact in a certain way with that system. Conversational AI interfaces offer you a little bit more flexibility. right? So that ideally, the reason for that is so that a user doesn't necessarily have to have that cognitive overload of knowing how to work the system. You don't have to onboard the user. The user can just start asking for the information that they need in a language that they are used to, right? So there's no learning involved. So conversational AI interfaces make that happen through this big component called natural language understanding, and which is largely where a lot of thinking happens today. But
Mhm.
also natural language, what's the other one? The representation. So you understand it, but you also speak back in natural language, right? And then there are other related components such as uh, speech to text, text to speech, all these, because if you, instead of typing, you want to talk,
Mhm.
again, you need a layer in between there, which takes what you're saying, converts it into text that then the NLP processing, NLU processing can, work with. So conversational AI is different from, and it's AI because of this major gigantic component called natural language processing. Sorry, I mean, is this good enough? It's a very long-winded answer, but do
No,
you have any?
it's actually really great because there's this technical side that's made of all these components. Some of them are the APIs, the how to connect them. Some of them are more like the layers of how it actually does it. And the other side, I would say, if I'm understanding it correctly, is the the change that conversational AI is bringing is the ability for you to talk to the computer in your language instead of you learning its language.
Correct. That's right. I to me, that's the major difference, because that's why a lot of people can, if they have the right, if they have the right information and the right attitude, can easily pivot into conversational AI,
Mhm.
because most, like I would say, about 70% of the work is what we've been doing with systems for, the past few decades, right? Whether it's a website, whether it's a mobile app, whether it's whatever, right? About 30% also may be too much, but about 30% of it is to do with AI, and it's to do with um, efficiencies in data processing that
Mhm.
big data brought to the fore. Um, yeah, I mean, and that's if you understand, like for me, that's what I would like people to understand. The conversational AI isn't like this giant unknown. You have the same similar tenets of thinking around the user experience and the flows and the but there's like more nuances around linguistics and language, because you're now living and trying to live in the realm of human speech, um, which is what sets it apart. But everything else, it still needs to do. It still needs to integrate with backend systems. It still
Mhm.
needs to exchange data, so on and so forth, that we've been doing for decades with other systems, other modalities.
That's so interesting. Thank you for this great explanation. I think a lot of people can enjoy it. So thank you so much for explaining conversational AI to me. And thank you guys out there for tuning in. Check out our website, check out our LinkedIn. If you're on ICQ, just type numbers, will be there, I guess. I don't know. And thank you again, Rucha, for your time and for this wonderful explanation.
My pleasure. Bye.